Graham.
Hi, Graham.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good, good. Hi, children.
Yeah, guys, how's it going?
This is story time with Graham.
It is. And today we're going to read you a couple stories each, see how you like them. I'm going to read The Three Spinners, Graham. Have you ever heard of that one?
I think I heard that story a long time ago.
Okay. Well, boys and girls, once upon a time there was a girl who could not spin thread. And in the old days, they used to use a spinning wheel to spin a thing called flax into thread. And that's how, all the queens and kings, all their clothes and all that thread, that's how they got their thread. So this little girl, she couldn't do spinning at all. She wouldn't even try. So her mother was very angry with her because she would just sit idle at the spinning wheel. And the mom would say, "You lazy, lazy girl." And then she kind of shake her by the shoulders. But one day, when she was shouting, the girl was sitting crying at the spinning wheel. The queen happened to pass by in her coach. She heard the girl crying and called to her coachman to stop the horses. The queen asked the mom, "Why are you yelling at your daughter? What has she done?" The queen's question should always be answered truthfully, but the old woman was too ashamed to say that she thought her own daughter was lazy. So instead she said, "My daughter just loves to spin, and I'm only a poor old woman and I can't afford to buy any flax. She cries because she wants to spin. I don't know what to do." Well, the queen says, "Your troubles are over. As it happens, I love to hear the whirl of the spinning wheel and to see freshly spun thread. I have plenty of flax at the palace. I'll take your daughter home with me and she can spin as much as she likes." The queen took the girl to the palace and showed her 3 rooms which were full from floor to ceiling with unspun flax. "Spin all of that flax into thread, my dear, and you shall marry my son," said the queen. The poor girl didn't know what to do. Of course she wanted to marry the prince, but how could she? She didn't know how to spin. For 3 whole days she sat and cried. On the 3rd day the queen came to see her. "Why are you weeping, child? Why haven't you started to spin?" The poor girl cried even harder. She said, "Look, I brought you to the palace to spin flax," said the queen. "If there's no thread for me to see tomorrow, you will be punished." Well, when the queen had swept majestically from the room, the poor girl, so sad, she stood at the window overlooking the street and cried as though her heart was going to break. Well, through her tears, she saw these 3 strange women walking around the road right in front of the palace. One of them had a very broad, flat foot. One of them had a lip that hung down over her chin, and the other one had an enormous thumb. Oh, the girl couldn't believe it. So one of the women called up to her and said, "Hey, why are you crying?" She goes, "I want to marry the prince, but I must spin all of this flax, and I don't know how to spin." "Well, if you call us aunties, and you won't be ashamed of our strange appearance, and if you'll invite us to sit with you at your wedding, we'll help you." "I shall be glad to call you auntie," said the girl. So the 3 strange women were as good as a word. They slipped into the palace without anyone seeing them, and they began to work. The one with that broad, flat foot worked the spinning wheel. The one with the lip that hung down over her chin, well, she wetted the flax. And the one with that enormous thumb, well, she was the one that twisted the thread. Together they spun the finest thread the queen had ever seen. She was so impressed, though she thought the girl herself had done the spinning, for the 3 strange women would hide every time the queen came. At last all the flax had been spun, and it was time for the wedding. When the arrangements were being made, the girl said to the queen, "I have 3 aunts who have been very, very kind to me, May I invite them to the wedding, and may they sit with me at the table?" "Of course," said the Queen. So the invitation was sent, and on the day of the wedding the three strange women arrived and were welcomed kindly by the girl and the prince. "Tell me, Auntie," said the prince, who couldn't help noticing such things about their appearance, "why do you have such a big foot?" "Well, because I'm the one, I tread the spinning wheel, and it takes a big foot to do it." "Oh," said the prince. And then he asked the other auntie, "And how is that you have such a long lip?" She said, "Because I wet the spinning thread." "Oh. And why do you have such an enormous thumb?" said the prince of the last auntie. "Because I twist the spinning thread," she answered. The prince looked at the three strange women, one with that big old foot, the other with that big old lip, and the one with that enormous thumb. And then he looked at his beautiful bride. He says, "If that's what spinning thread does to a woman, I forbid you to ever touch the spinning wheel." Little did he know she couldn't even spin. So the girl married the prince, and the three spinners moved into the palace to take care of all the spinning. They loved spinning as much as the girl loved the prince and her aunties, and everyone lived in the palace, happy ever after.
Yay!
Well, she sure fooled him, didn't she?
She sure did, I'm telling you. Wow, she got lucky finding those aunties to do all the work for her.
Yeah, even though they weren't related, they really helped her out a lot. But that was good. They were kind to her, and she was kind to them.
Yes.
Okay, Graham, here you go.
Alrighty. Well, let's see what I want to read. Oh, here's one of my favorites. The Ugly Duckling. Okay. So once somewhere in the country there was a duck who had a clutch of eggs to hatch. 5 of them hatched into fluffy little ducklings, but the 6th for some reason was bigger than all the others. It still lay in the nest, smooth and unbroken. "That's much too big to be a duck egg," said one of the duck's friends. "Looks more like a turkey egg to me." "How will I be able to tell?" asked the duck. "It will not swim when it's hatched," said her friend. "Turkeys never do." But the egg wasn't a turkey egg because the bird that hatched from it did swim. It swam as well as any duckling. "That last duckling of yours is very ugly," laughed all the farmyard hens. It was true. He wasn't a bit like his brothers and sisters. "What an ugly duckling," laughed the geese when they saw him, and somehow that name stuck. Whenever anyone wanted him, they called, "Ugly duckling, where are you?" Or if they didn't want him, they said, "Ugly duckling, go away." He even thought of himself as an ugly duckling. He was very sad. He didn't like being ugly. He didn't like being teased. No one would play with him. No one would swim with him, and even his mother made fun of him. One day the ugly duckling ran away, and I'm sorry to say no one missed him at all. The ugly duckling hoped that he would find someone in the big wide world to be his friend, someone who wouldn't mind how ugly he was. But the wild ducks were just as unkind as the farmyard ducks, and the wild geese honked at him and made fun just as the farmyard geese had done. Am I ever to find a friend? Am I ever to be happy? One day as he sat alone and unhappy in the middle of a lake, on the bleak flat marshes, he heard the steady beat of wings. He looked up and there were swans flying overhead with their long necks stretched before them and their white feathers gleaming in the sun. They were so beautiful. If only he had been born a swan. But he hadn't. He had been born a duckling, and an ugly one at that. The ugly duckling stayed on the lake all through the long hard winter. Food was hard to find, and he was often very hungry. Once he was trapped in some ice and thought he would die. He was set free just in time by a farmer and his dog. Spring came, and the lake where he had spent a lonely winter became a busy, exciting, and noisy place. The ducks were forever quacking. The geese were forever honking. There was plenty of splashing and excitement. but not for the ugly duckling. No one quacked the latest piece of gossip to him. Sadly, he spread his wings and took to the sky. He had never flown before, and he was surprised at how strong his wings were. They carried him away from the lake and the marshes and over a leafy garden. On a still clear pond in the garden, he could see the beautiful white swans with their gracefully arched necks, and suddenly the ugly duckling felt that he did not want to live any longer. I would go down to the pond and ask those beautiful birds to kill me, he said, and went down to the water. He bent his head humbly and closed his eyes. Kill me, he said to the swans. I'm too ugly to live. Ugly, said the swans. Have you looked at your reflection? I do not need to look. I know how ugly I am, said the duckling. Look into the water, said the swans. And so the ugly duckling did. And what he saw made his heart beat so fast and filled him with so much happiness. During the long winter months, he had changed. I'm just like you. When the children who lived in the garden came to feed the swans, they all called to one another, a new swan, a new swan. Isn't he beautiful? And then the ugly duckling knew, without a doubt, that he really was a swan, and that he had always been a swan, and that his days of being lonely were over. He was no longer an ugly duckling. He was a beautiful swan now.
I wonder how that egg got into the duck's nest.
Well,
It's hard to say, isn't it?
I don't know.
They were so unkind to him.
I know, that's so sad. You know, when people are different, you shouldn't make fun of them.
Oh, no.
No.
Because who knows, they might be a beautiful person on the inside.
That's right.
Yeah.
So would you like to read another story, Graham?
I think I want to read the story of the Three Little Pigs.
Well, go ahead.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Boys and girls, Three Little Pigs are quite an interesting story. And if you've not heard of it before, I hope you enjoy it now. It's about these, once upon a time, there was these three little pigs, and they lived together in one house. It was their parents' house. But Mom and Dad Pig were going to move to Florida as they were going to retire. And the three little piggies decided they'd build houses of their own. Well, the first little pig said, he didn't feel very industrious, but he saw all of this straw outside, and he says, I'm going to build my house out of straw. It won't take any time at all. I'll just build that. And his one brother said, well, okay. I think I'll build mine out of twigs. He goes, well, yeah, that ought to work. And the other little brother said, no. He said, straw probably isn't very sturdy. I don't think twigs are going to be very sturdy either. I'm going to build my house out of brick. It's going to take a little while. And the other two piggies started laughing at him, going, what do you need bricks for? So he said, I'm going to do it anyway. So one time, as the little pig was in his house, made out of straw, a wolf came to the door, knocked on it. He goes, little pig, let me in. And the little pig said, not by the hair of my chinny chin chin, I'm not going to let you in. And the wolf said, but I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in. And Pig said, go ahead. It's not going to go anywhere. You can't blow my house down. Well, the wolf began to huff and puff, and the straw began to blow everywhere, and it scared the little pig so bad he ran out the back door and over to his brother's house. And his brother's house is made out of twigs. So he's sitting there and he said, a wolf came to my door and he huffed and he puffed and he blew my house down. Can I please stay here with you? He goes, well, sure. He said, that's fine. Well, it was no time later. Knock at the door. little pigs, let me in. And they're both scared to death. Said, not by the hair of J, Chin Chin, we're not going to let you in. He said, I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in. And he was huffing and puffing, and all of a sudden all the twigs were flying everywhere. Scared those two little pigs to death, and they got out the back door and ran to their brother's house, who had built his house out of brick. Well, the wolf was really angry because he found that looking through the rubble, pigs were gone. Ticked him off something. He couldn't believe it. The next day, he went to the little pig's house made out of brick. And he says, little pig, let me in. And he said, oh, no, not by the hair of my chinny chin chin, you're not coming in here. And he says, I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in. Go ahead, it's a brick, it's not going anywhere. That wolf spent a half an hour huffing and puffing, and nothing happened. So he says, hey, little pig, he said, if you want to tomorrow, he said, I'll show you a patch of turnips. They're just getting ripe, and I think that you might like to have some. And the little pig said, well, thank you for telling me. He said, sure, you come by here tomorrow at 8 o'clock and I'll go with you. And the wolf said, okay, I'll be here. Well, that little pig was just a little bit smarter than that little wolf was. He got up at 6, and he went down there, and he picked some turnips, and he got home before the wolf even got up. The wolf was so mad, and he couldn't believe that little pig outsmarted him. So he went over to the house again, knocked on the door, and said, hey, little pig. He said, I know where there's an orchard and the apples are ripe. Would you like to meet me there tomorrow? And the little pig said, well, sure, that'd be nice of you. I'd love to meet you there tomorrow. Okay. Pig got up early. And he was already in the trees and putting all these apples in baskets, and here you could see the wolf coming. Oh, so he took one of these apples, and he took it and he threw it way far, right past the head of the wolf. Well, the wolf went chasing after the apple, the little pig climbed down and ran home. And the wolf was mad again. He said, boy, that little pig's smart. I can't believe it. So the wolf gathered himself up. He went and knocked on the door again, and he says, would you like to go to the fair with me tomorrow? He says, there's a lot of stuff there I think that you might enjoy. And the pig said, sure, that would be fun. So the next day, little pig got up early, went into the fair, and he bought himself a little milk can. It's pretty big, but he thought, he could use that. And on the way home, he saw the wolf. He hopped in that milk can, and it started rolling down the hill, and it ran over the roof, and it rolled right up to his door, and he got out real fast, and he ran in the house and shut the door. The wolf had it. He said, I'm going to get that pig. I'm just going to get that pig. So the little pig got in the house, and he told his brothers. He said, now you go hide. There might be some trouble, and I don't want you getting involved, so you go hide. I'm going to get that wolf. So he put a kettle on his fireplace, on the inside of the fireplace, how they used to do in old times. He put the turnips he had picked. He put the apples in there, and he could hear the wolf. He was up on the roof. He said, well, he's going to try to come down that chimney. That's okay. All right. Pretty soon the wolf's pretty smug. He goes, I'll get that little guy now. I'll get that pig, and I'll get his brothers too. Okay. He climbed down that chimney, and as he got closer and closer, he began to smell the turnips, and he began to smell the apples. And before long, he lost his footing, fell into the pot with a big bang, hit his head, passed out. The little pig put a cover on that lid, and I'm happy to say that was the end of the wolf.
Wow.
Yep, can't outsmart that little pig.
No, he was very smart.
He was persistent, but the little pig was just a little bit brighter than he was, wasn't he?
That's right.
They should have listened. His two brothers were just not as smart as he was, but they got that little wolf for sure. So, do you have something else you'd like to read for the children?
Yes.
Here you go,
I
ma'am.
think I would like to read, Jack and the Beanstalk.
Oh, that's a fun story.
That's a very fun story. I like it. Jack lived with his mother in a tumble-down house. They were so poor, they never seemed to have enough to eat. And one day Jack's mother said, "Jack, you must take the cow to market and sell her." "If I do, then we will have no milk," said Jack. "And if we don't sell her, we'll soon have nothing to eat at all," replied his mother. And so very sadly, Jack led the cow to market. He was about halfway there when he met an old man. "Is your cow for sale?" "Yes." "Then I'll give you 5 beans for her."
Beans.
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 Jack laughed. "You can't buy a cow with 5 beans," he said. "Ah, but these are magic beans. You'll make a fortune with them."
Sure.
Jack couldn't resist such a good bargain. He gave the cow an affectionate pat and handed the halter to the old man and took the 5 beans. Jack's mother was furious. "We needed money to buy food," she scolded. "How could you be so stupid?" She took the beans from Jack's hand and she threw them out the window. "That's what I think of your bargain," she said. Jack went to bed. He was very sad. He didn't get any supper. He supposed he had been rather silly. He would have to go look for work the next morning.
Oh, yeah.
He couldn't let his mother starve.
Jeez.
So the next morning he woke up bright and early. Instead of the bright rays of sunlight, which usually lay across his bedroom floor, there was a large shadow. He went to the window to see what was blocking out the sun. Growing from the ground below his window was the biggest beanstalk in the world. It reached up and up into the sky, and the top of it was lost amongst the clouds. The old man was right. They were magic beans, and I'm going to climb to the top to see what I can find. But Jack's mother, she begged him, "Don't go." But Jack made up his mind. He climbed up and up. He climbed through white swirling clouds until he came to the very tip of the beanstalk. And from the top of the beanstalk, he stepped into another land. It was a land just like his own, except everything in it was 2 and 3 times as big. All that climbing had made him hungry, so he went to the door of the only house he could see, and he knocked boldly. The door was opened by a huge woman. She was so big she was surely the wife of a giant. Well, Jack asked her if she could give him some breakfast, and he had just finished eating when he heard footsteps as heavy as boulders, and then a voice as loud as thunder. "Fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman." Well, quick as a flash, the giant woman, she bundled Jack into the oven. "Shh, be very quiet," she said. "That's my husband, and he likes to eat boys like you for breakfast." The huge woman, who was indeed the wife of a giant, told her husband he was mistaken, and she put a bowl of porridge on the table. When he had eaten the porridge, the giant called for his hen. "Lay," he ordered. And that hen laid a golden egg. Jack could see everything through the crack of the oven door, and he was determined to have that hen for himself.
I like one of them, wouldn't you?
Yeah, golden eggs.
Mhm.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of money. Well, the giant's head began to nod, and soon he was asleep. As quick as a bee about to sting, Jack left that oven. He picked up that hen, and he ran to the top of the beanstalk, and he climbed to earth again. Mother, we are going to be rich. A few days later, he decided to pay another visit to the land of giants. Well, his mother begged him not to go again, but he was determined to go. This time he crept up secretly into the big house and hid. He waited for the giant to come home. He heard footsteps as heavy as falling boulders and a voice as loud as thunder. Fee, fi, fo, fum! I smell the blood of an Englishman! Well, the giant's wife said, I'll help you look for him, and if it's that boy who stole our little hen, I'll cook him for breakfast.
Yeah.
But Jack had hid himself very well, and they finally gave up looking for him. After breakfast, the giant called for his magic harp. Sing, he ordered, and the harp sang sweetly. Well, the giant's head began to nod, and soon he was asleep. Jack jumped from his hiding place, snatched up the magic harp, and started to run. Master, master, called the giant harp. The giant awoke with such a roar that the people in the land below the beanstalk thought the sky was falling in. Fee, fi, fo, fum! I do smell the blood of an Englishman! He ran after Jack with great lumbering, thundering steps. Jack was small and nimble. He had a good start. When he reached the top of the beanstalk, he tucked that harp inside his shirt and he began to climb down. The beanstalk began to shake and creak and groan as the angry giant followed him. Faster Jack went, faster and faster. Mother! Mother, he called. Bring me an axe, quickly! He jumped to the ground and took the axe. He swung his arms as though he were the strongest man in the world. And with 3 hefty cuts, the beanstalk came tumbling to the ground. There was a terrible roar as the giant fell. And he made a hole so big when he hit the ground that both he and the beanstalk disappeared in it. And they were lost forever. Well, as for Jack and his mother, they lived happily ever after with the hen who laid the golden eggs and the harp which sang beautiful songs. And they were never poor again.
Well, Jack was lucky when he cut down that stalk. The giant didn't fall on him.
Well, he would have smushed.
Yeah.
He would have been gone forever.
Yeah.
Mom would have had the hen and the harp all to herself. That was a nice story.
Yeah, that was good.
Well, you want to read another one, or?
Tell you what, I smell those cookies we put in the oven.
I've got milk and cookies.
Milk
That
and-
sounds really
It
good.
does. I think, why don't we go and have some of those,
I
and
think so.
maybe later we'll read some more.
Okay.
Right?
Alrighty.
Okay, boys and girls. Bye-bye. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.